We are continuing our series on persuasion and argument. This presentation will introduce Stephen Toulmin's model of argument. Toulmin was a British philosopher, writer, and educator. He's most famous for creating a method of analyzing arguments. Toulmin's method breaks arguments down into 6 component parts. He named these 6 components claims, grounds, warrants, qualifiers, backing, and rebuttals. We're only going to discuss the first 3 components in this presentation, but we'll cover the other 3 components in the next presentation. The first of the 6 components is the claim. A claim is a controversial statement that one person wants others to accept. When we say controversial here, we mean that the audience can reject it or argue against it. Let's take a look at some examples. I could make the claim Android phones are superior to iPhones. Now, if you're an iPhone user, you're probably not going to be too happy with that claim. You like your phone, you paid good money for your phone, it works for you. How could another phone be so superior? Thus, we can see that this claim would be controversial to at least some people. Another claim could be, the United States should raise its minimum wage. While this may seem like a good idea to you, if you're an employer who suddenly had to pay employees more money, you might be quite upset by that suggestion. Or what if we made the claim, all street drugs should be legalized? That isn't going to be very popular, is it? Remember, we're not just talking about marijuana here. We're talking about all street drugs. That would include crack, cocaine, PCP, ecstasy, LSD, etc. You can see why this idea is very controversial. In thinking about arguments, remember that a single argument can contain many claims, but generally there is one main claim. You've probably had teachers refer to this main claim as the thesis statement in previous classes. The thesis statement or main claim expresses the overarching idea of an argument. It's important to recognize the main claim in any argument you read or hear. The next part of Toulmin's model is known as grounds. Grounds are the pieces of evidence that support the claim. This evidence can come in a variety of forms. Here are some example forms. Facts and statistics, first-hand experience, supporting research, case studies, surveys, anecdotes or narratives, hypothetical examples, expert testimony, and common sense. The more controversial the claim is, the more evidence will be required to prove it. When someone makes a very controversial claim, ask yourself, has this person presented strong enough grounds to support such a wild claim? And when you are constructing your own arguments, ask yourself, how controversial is my claim? Have I provided strong enough evidence for people to support that claim? The final part of Toulmin's model that we'll be discussing today is the warrant. A warrant expresses the relationship or connection between the claim and its grounds. Many times the connection is so obvious that the warrant does not need to be stated. Our minds logically make the connection without need of assistance. Here's an example. If we look outside and see that it's raining, that is grounds for us to make the claim that you should carry an umbrella when you go outside. The connection is that the umbrella would prevent you from getting wet. That's the warrant. But it's so obvious that we don't need to say it. Sometimes, however, the relationship between a claim and its grounds is not obvious. In this case, the warrant does need to be stated. Let's take a look at an example. If you're working at a fast food restaurant and you saw that the fryer is on fire, you might be tempted to throw water on it. A coworker observing what you're about to do tells you to throw baking soda on it instead. You freeze and don't do anything because you're confused. It's at this point that your coworker tells you that water won't put out a grease fire. In fact, it would spread the fire and make it worse. Your coworker's explanation is a warrant. I'll point out here that if there's one area of writing arguments that students struggle with, it's warrants. When you're writing your own arguments, be mindful of whether connection between the claim and the grounds is obvious or not. And if it is not obvious, make sure you clarify it with a directly stated warrant. If you fail to do this, the strength of your argument will be significantly reduced. That concludes this presentation. In presentation 3, we'll explore the other 3 components of the Toulmin model of argument.